material world is not somehow able to make them stop. So only the immaterial world could probably influence them if they would have any means to see this indeed as in ghosts and hell on the other side for them awaiting. The best would be if their own deceased family from the older Rockefellers and whatever, they would show up suddenly as ghosts and tell them that it's hell there if they go on and that they have to stop.
Also, disputes amongst them, different interests, so they can kill each other. We have to meditate on them, to go inside them. To not judge. They cannot reach them. Let's go inside. Copy everything they do. Do not become as bad as them, but just mirror them. Go inside them and then become a mirror there. I come to Bill Gates quietly, and he causes some tension here. Maybe just a place that is better obvious are from females. Here, a cramp started. Some separation between what is lower and higher. He's some little devil, duiveltje een doosje. In a way, he cannot be taken seriously. Because he's so nothing, he has to all the time prove himself that he is something. And these people who do that, it was especially men who did that, but women also, at least more visibly now, like that. The smallest that tries to present itself as big, with big consequences for the world. This ego pattern, it can relax in reality. Pretend fake grandness. The greater the ideas, the better. Talking about other planets is nice for them. The Bill Gateses destroying the moon or clouding, or veiling the sun. And everything should be on a worldwide scale. That's for the ego, and it's best. Small scale, that doesn't work. So for him, everything is big. If he wants to go into the food business now, he wants to have it all. It's not that he just wants to have a relatively insignificant share of the market. That's not how duiveltje uit een doosje functions. And the whole capitalistic system is to allow these people to go after their ego dreams, to be the biggest, to have it all, to be total ruler, have total say over everyone else's life. If people don't see this limitation and the destructiveness of the capitalistic system, then the whole world goes down with it. Even the right wings must wake up to the fact of the bad situation. it has been created, amongst others by them, especially by them, by their ideology of the strongest is allowed to have everything. That's their basic philosophy of the right wings. So it's a struggle of all against all, the Hobbesian idea. And the strongest wins. That has always been the right wing philosophy. It has always been a separate philosophy, separate from the heart, from other people, from everything.
That's the thing, that this philosophy, the strongest means the one who has the least heart, who has no heart. Because this is the one who will climb up the stairs on the dead bodies of other people to get what they want.
Yeah.
This aura was the first time like this?
Yeah. Well, not the first time I see my aura, but it's alternating from left to right, almost in this tempo. Choo, 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 choo.
This means that they are done, in the sense that the duality can't hide anymore, or that the oneness is now.
This means that the heart managed to manifest itself into this world of duality on the level where they can be reached by my curse. Since there's no other way that the heart goes so deeply down into the dark. That there's no separation anymore between dark and light, but it's still the light naturally rules. It's a simple rule that people live in the separation, in the dark. They cannot, and they even don't want to, finish the separation. Well, you could say on the deepest level, but okay, on the manifest level now. So it's obvious that the heart must do this to make an end to the separation, to bring everything back into one. People lost in the dark anyway don't know how to deal with this. Everything has its counterpart or its mirror. So if they're hurrying now to kill as many people as possible in a certain amount of time, that means at the same time something else is happening. Action is reaction. Nobody can get away with anything in the end. So as I said in this text, if it's not in this lifetime, for whatever earthly reasons, some, and not many people, will get away with their incredible crimes. They will meet me afterwards, but it's not that the earth and heaven are something totally separate. It's one holistic organism, universe. if you really understand this law of action is reaction, they also understand the karmic law, then which indeed what we before we talked about, that it's quite clumsy to assume by them that they would get away with it when they don't realize it yet, because they're so obsessed with their dark plans, their goals, amongst others, to kill a substantial part of the world population, next to enslavery of the remaining part, and to have all the means, financial means, all the physical resources for themselves. Just name it, everything that ego can dream of. That it cannot stop wanting. The ego is a mechanism. If people consider these people who do all this to other people as people, you don't understand it. You must see the forces behind this, the mechanisms. You must understand the ego, how it functions. If you try to understand these people on a human level, as you know yourself, partly, although there are hardly any people here on earth who understand themselves, which is something that is quite relevant, in fact. Anyhow, then we cannot understand these people indeed. If you go into the ego in the first place, logically, naturally, into the ego in your own system, then you can also understand how the ego and others function, because it's the same principle. Ego is ego. It stops having its power by being seen by consciousness. So there's people at the top of the pyramid. There's a flagrant great lack of consciousness that would, in principle, be able to keep them human, as we consider this term to be human indeed. Anyhow, the heart goes inside. In a way, the heart is already inside, only it needs to manifest on an earthly level. Inside, that means in the dark. This whole earth, unlike people think, is a dark place. If you see the whole nature, how it functions, animals killing each other to survive. So this also extends, of course, to humans. I mean, humans have many more means than other animals, and they are capable of huge destruction. And since this destruction isn't stopped, it continues with no limits. There needs to be some intervention. The destroyers won't find this impulse to look inside themselves and to see the ego and be humanized, be relaxed to the whole. So this intervention needs to take place. The intervention can then only come from a place that has seen the ego and is aware of what is going on. And it's also possible, also only possible, as I said earlier, through becoming like them. It seems scary for people that formulate it this way, but if you know yourself as light, you're not afraid of the dark. It cannot be destroyed. So you can become the dark without losing the light, and knowing at the same time who is the natural lead, the ruler, the supreme, the primary. And for that, it's so important that the role of duality is understood. This process, what I just shortly described, can only take place if duality is allowed, so that the light of the heart can weaken itself, and to allow the darkness to become stronger, so it can be seen in all power, in all its details. And this is also necessary for the manifestation of the heart into this earthly realm. It didn't happen, and it cannot happen, if there is still a separation and the light looks from above down into the dark earthly realm, and thus perhaps try to intervene. In a state of separation, this cannot have any substantial effect. You can see this in a person that we all know too well these last years here, how it functions. If this person recognizes the non-separation, then it stops to screw up, to be aggressive, to shed its state of separation into the atmosphere. That's why the oneness and duality is so extremely important. I cannot overemphasize this. Oneness is not enough, duality is not enough. It should be the oneness and duality. And that's what happened here. That's what manifested here. And it has important background reason why this had to manifest this way in these times, in this, as they call it, end times. The end of what? So I'm here to restore the balance. When I say I put a curse, cast a curse on the dark elite, light, it's not just to take revenge. I'm not interested in revenge. It's to restore the balance. Between light and dark. And to show who is the natural ruler. To show, you could call it the natural pyramid instead of the turned around one. So the turned around one is the one that we know is it's big on the earth, the level, and gets into a point, is small in the heavens, you could say, on the highest spiritual planes. This is the earthly perspective. This is not so in the deeper reality. That's the other way around. From the perspective of the whole cosmos, the earth is not the center of the universe. It's just the tiny point, not totally irrelevant, but still the tiny point touching the earth, the matter. So they see themselves as the top of the turned upside down pyramid, and often it is even drawn as being separate from the rest, the lower parts, the biggest part of the pyramid. There's all the ego doing this. The ego is incredibly arrogant, of course, and also stupid and clumsy, but also dangerous. Everything is turned upside down here on earth. And if people accept this turning upside down, if you kill Jesus and let the Romans, the perpetrators, rule, or whoever, doesn't matter when or where, it's always the same patterns manifesting. And now with the new technological means, it's extremely dangerous on a worldwide scale. But it's still the same principles. That the ego, the dark, earthly ego, wants to have the power over everyone and everything, and it claims it's even divine. I mean, many claims have been made in the past by people who are just the earthly rulers, and they see that everything they gain with their crimes against people, against all nature, they see that it's empty, all their conquests. So what do they do? What do they do? They, out of nothing, out of the blue, they put on themselves spiritual or even divine flavor, lie, and that's even partly how they manipulate people The church is, of course, a good example of this in the past. Everything is turned upside down. So the ones who claim to be spiritual, they're part of the biggest criminals. They're not the spiritual people. They have always ruled here on earth. The Catholic Church to be one of them, or the Jewish system. And that's how they control people, to turn things upside down and claim it's the other way around. And the other side of the same coin, unfortunately or not, is that people indeed, they buy this. And in that sense, it's all a huge spiritual process for people to wake up. How they have been deceived, not only by the people who are the perpetrators or the criminals at the supposed top of the pyramid, which is in fact, as I said, the lowest point. But by the ego in themselves also. It's too simple to put the blame always outside somewhere. And it's even the same people who keep voting for these same perpetrators. Even when they feel cheated, they keep supporting the system. They're afraid to let go of this system that is created by the turned upside down system. So in the long run, the only thing that makes a substantial difference if people start to finally turn within and see the lie in themselves. They never supported someone like Jesus. It's all blah blah blah. It's all going to the church on Sunday and listen to some nice story, and then the rest, 6 days, they go on with their crimes as well. Crimes against their heart, against their own heart, against other people's hearts, against animals. Having all kinds of justifications for slaughtering cows and pigs and just name it. Still, also in the alternative media. They want to take away our meat. Do you know what you're saying? You say something like this. Turn within finally and find the truth there. Anyhow, it takes a long time. This process of people finally turning within, which is the only way to stop the people at the lowest point of the pyramid, the real pyramid. Or turn everything upside down. And that's why I intervene. Also to accelerate the people becoming conscious. It goes still mostly via turning outside what happens to them. But sooner or later it may lead to turning within if they get interested, and sooner or later they should be to what happens inside. If the outside is not a manifestation of what happens inside. Because some people, the most dark people, have managed to reach the top, or as I just said, the lowest point. If you turn it upside down again, from being turned upside down before, if people see that, then they become also more humble to see that the same patterns are in themselves. And that's why also you see always, almost always, not always, that when there's a regime change in a country that's supposedly for the good, it again ends in a drama. Because the next people, they never dealt with their ego inside. And they will execute, perform the same egoic principles again. And again, people will buy it for a while, and they start to be suspicious. What is this? Why are we still being bullied, etc.? There's only one way to fundamentally change something, that people find these ego patterns in themselves, and if you do, you cannot be deluded anymore by the next generation of perpetrators. It just stops. You cannot be deluded anymore, because it doesn't resonate anymore. There's something inside that is still dark in yourself. And this is the only basis for a fundamental change here on Earth for humanity. Yet again, things go so fast at this point that some intervention is anyway necessary. And in fact, these two things are not separate from each other. Intervention and the people becoming aware of a world much bigger than their ego dictates them. The ego is also the one who projects, by the way, everything to outside. All the misery that people think comes from outside. And it's true that if the biggest threats have been dealt with, whether by this intervention or not, partly due to it, thanks to it, then there's more space again for a while for people to turn within, to meditate, to see the truth, and to possibly not let the same threats, the same crimes happen again, or not to that extent of criminality. So the process works, as I wrote the other day, in spirals. Dramas will return as you become more and more conscious of them. Consciousness is more and more allowed into the earthly realm. Then that makes a substantial difference. It goes a bit together with the extent of threat. The bigger the threat becomes for even the survival of humanity as a whole, the bigger the need to become conscious. That's the only way that can stop it. Because in the dark, these processes, terrible dark processes go on without being stopped by themselves. The perpetrators won't stop. That's clear by now. They accelerate the crimes. They get enthusiastic. You can feel that in the atmosphere. They won't stop. They see how far they can get away with it, and I can just feel that. They get enthusiastic, and they're extremely arrogant, of course. Power is really a whore. If power is not balanced, is not stopped, checked, exposed, it will turn this place into an extreme hell. That's where we are. That's where we're going to. The ego doesn't stop. It wants to control every small nanoparticle here on Earth, every little bacteria, every little virus. They create in a lab or manipulate. And they think by all the particles they can rule the whole. That's their dream, their obsession. They don't understand that the whole rules them from up, down. And they think it's from down, up. From down where they are, what they do. As their big ego, they can rule the whole. Which in the end is not possible. I said it before. And they don't understand the whole principle. The big problem here is, that's why the intervention is still possible, needed, is there will be a huge, what they nowadays call euphemistically, collateral damage, which means in human terms mass killing, mass deaths, mass suffering, starvation, just name it, which is already going on now. And it manifests usually first in the weakest countries, or weakest people who have the least financial means to exploit other countries. So they are the ones who are exploited. And that starvation will happen first and most, though not only. Intervention, curse. This is a mirror of how far the cabal has gone. Thinking they can get away with it. Thinking there's no answer from the universe, from the heart. There's always an answer. Action is reaction. So, we'll meditate on this curse. The curse, in a way, is to, paradoxically, to darken the dark, to trouble the dark force. To sow confusion. Disagreement among the perpetrators. The heart is here on earth to learn all the evil ways so that it can be, so these evil ways can be mirrored back to where it belongs. Why did they get away with it so long, so far, so much, so intensely? Because the mirror is not strong enough yet. In general, people's mirror function is very weak. Again, thanks to not seeing their own ego. Because if you see your own ego in the eye, if you face it, feel it, see how it functions, all its patterns, it's performing in the world, then you become a mirror more and more. So why is this mirror function not happening here on Earth? Like people's resistance, reluctance to go into their own ego, they support the cabal and their wicked plans, even if seemingly they seem to be against it, and of course they don't want to be killed. That's not the thing, but they're lost in this duality. It's something else if these same people would surrender to something beyond themselves, which I call the heart, overarching everything, embedding everything in a whole. And if that would happen, then people just don't cooperate anymore with all the systems they create to exploit people. If we are ordered to wear a face mask, people just look strange. What do you mean? Then just walk further, go on with their lives. So why do people comply to this? What is a strange pattern, mechanism in people? That if some people with money says you have to do this, they get we have to do this. I don't see another way to put a face mask on. Or to pay taxes, or just name it, any system they create to exploit people. Not going into all the details about taxes now. But basically it's a system of exploitation. And so they made money of these systems, taking away children out of people's houses and families. There's a number of such systems that people have come to accept. Strangely, maybe this is even the worst, the weirdest system that you can accept is humanity. What is more natural than having a family and having children, and then you let them taken away by a bunch of criminals? And 140 to 50,000 children per year are taken away from families. Per year. That's up to 500,000 in 10 years. And we still don't protest. And what's going on in people, really? What has happened to you, people? Every day you see they're spreading tons of poison into the air. What happened to you that you accept this, that you just look at the sky and you don't do anything? What has happened? You let children of other people be raped. The pedophiles. Pedophilians, what's the word? And you think that won't happen to your children? What is this for situation? Really, what is this? And that you even vote for these people. Because they wear suits. What is this? Come on. The whole religion of wearing shoes. What is this? I'm serious. It's not just a piece of cloth. It's just a symbol of Satan. Don't you finally understand this? Even people in the alternative media sometimes they wear a suit, I see. What is this? Why do you have to comply to this? I mean, you also don't wear a Hakenkruis. I don't know what's the English for it. This Nazi symbol. Swastika. Put them on your suit, on your tie. Put the swastika. Now we're there again. What are you doing? Why are these people respected who wear suits? What is this? I keep on asking these rhetorical questions to you. What is this? What are you doing? And then wearing one yourself. I saw my father started with it, 1980. I was shocked. After having quite a free education, free raising up in our home. It was freer than other people around us, I saw. And at a certain point he started to wear suits. Because he had to have some meetings with ministers. Or one minister at least from the Justice Department. Why do you do this? And even being angry at my mother that she hadn't wiped out the last wrinkle in the suit. Ironed it perfectly. I still remember this. I was 17 or something, 18. Why are you angry at her? Because of this wrinkle. It's all related, all this. It's not just some little detail. It is important. If you go to a minister, you should not go in a suit. You should tell him the truth, what he is doing. And this one was even mentioned later as one of the pedophiles. Many, if not most, ministers of justice in Holland are pedophiles. So why do you go in your suit to them? Not to shoot them, but to pay a tribute, or how you say that? To pay respect to these people? Of course, he didn't know he was a pedophile and raped children, but what is it for circus, for clownery? Before that, he was not like this. Why are all these people getting sucked into this system that is inhuman, not heartful? This is the problem. Why do you submit? Why do all these people wear these face masks? This is the problem. If all these people submit to the system, of course these people will go on with their crimes. It will get worse and worse, of course. How can you not understand this? It's not a little step to suddenly wear this suit, to go to your work and for an important meeting. I wish it was just stupid, but there's something behind it. It's the first or 10th step into the system that is not human. It has no heart. It's not a detail. See if you start to wear this suit, what you're doing. See where you're going. See what happened to you already. That you have this tendency even to wear this suit. It's not about the suit itself. There are many examples of this, but the suit is a very good example. That's why I mentioned it. And I remember it from my own past. And if you don't see through this lie, you start to do it again. Wear the suit, but also in your acts. It will influence you. Because something happens in your consciousness that you have made the first or 10th step already. And then you can also make the next one. It is important to see. See the first step that you put into the system. It's not that you cannot get out anymore if you are already at your 5th or 10th step. But see it. And if you don't, you will take the 100th step. If once you can kill a chicken, you will easily kill the next 100. That's also how it went with the Nazis. You kill one Jew and you kill the next 1,000. See if they order you to give people a fine who don't wear a face mask. See what's happening in you if you have the tendency to submit to this, or something you rebellious against it and doesn't want it, but maybe still does it, or may not, or wants to get away from the shit. It's such a job where you have to bully other people because to support some little group of people in the world. I think they have the right to bully the rest. This is an important step, moment in your career as a human being, I would almost say. What are you doing then? And most people, unfortunately, just turn away their consciousness. They don't want to know what they're doing. They're not responsible. They just look up. Well, I'm ordered to do this. It's an order from higher order. What higher order? Everything is turned around. It's the lowest fucking order here on earth that you can get. That's what it is. It's not a higher order. It's the lowest scum who gives you this order and you fucking do it. And that's why we're in this situation. Because people don't see that everything is turned around here on earth. The highest of this so-called pyramid is the lowest. The darkest, the meanest, the least compassionate, the most separate from the heart, the least conscious. There's no consciousness if this bitch Hillary Clinton is dancing from joy when Gaddafi is dead, has been murdered by her and others. Orders. There's no consciousness. She's taken in this force of unconsciousness, totally obsessed within it. There's a dark tunnel that you see your goals are getting closer, or at least not threatened from outside. By someone who is not against doing human things for the population. So yes, the cabal should be stopped, but it's not enough. People also turn within. What's your role in all of this? Why don't we care when people starve in Africa, for example? Don't you see that it's part of a whole system that is run by the West, the Western elite, at least, the light, that perpetuates and that reinforces this huge inequality here on Earth, where some are exploited by others, by a minority. So what do we do? We give a bit of money to Africa instead of taking the system down. It's not a structural solution. It's just for your conscience. It doesn't come from a bad heart. I don't say that. Only you are fooled. These people even want it. They exploit the people in the poorest countries by taking their resources, etc. All kinds of financial knots, financial systems. And then they're even the ones who say, we have to do something for these people, they are starving. I'm so fucking disgusted with this whole system, really. I have no words for this. As truth, the thing I can stand least is lies. It's just my nature. And the worse the crime is, the bigger the lies around it too, and justify it. I mean, it's not for nothing that the ones who are supposed to be the philanthropists, they're the biggest criminals. The biggest lies come from there. The most disgusting it is, what they're doing. And it's always like this. The biggest criminals put the biggest lies around them to protect their lives against being exposed. It's just, all these patterns are so obvious once you see them. The ego knows, to say it very basically, it is wrong. It is doing something against the whole. That's the whole basic of it. It's a crime in itself. So to go on with their crimes because they cannot stop themselves, egos, they have to put lies around them to justify it before other people, before the community. So what do? It's also logic. They buy the media. Of course they will do that. They have the money for it. Some of them they even buy articles about people to push people who they want to be in power. It happens in Holland, for example, but it happens everywhere. In Germany, just name it. France. And the people vote for these people. They read something nice about these people, and they vote for them. It's so. I saw a movie at least 2 times. I think it's already from the end of the 60s, if I remember well. I remember my cousin was quite enthusiastic about that. I hadn't expected that. But I also saw a movie then. It was about some kind of anarchists in Spain. Let's find the title of that movie again. It was very impressive. I don't remember so much of the movie, but some spheres I remember. I was sitting in his apartment and more, in the end totally he started to, with a huge sledgehammer, he started to destroy his whole apartment. And of course this stands for the whole system. You take a sledgehammer and you don't, as many people, I remember in the interior they put some pot with a flower 10 centimeters further, but maybe it looks better. This is not a way to deal with it, with all this shit. the way is to take a sledgehammer to destroy the whole thing. And it was, this end of the movie was so glorious in that sense. I don't remember, maybe it was tragic comic or whatever, but it really impresses people. They see that. Because everybody has this impulse to take the sledgehammer and to destroy the whole system. And not even only outside, but also inside, this whole ego structure by which we are led. Everybody's fed up with it, being led by ego. There's no freedom in it. You're a slave of the ego. But it's just a manifestation in this world of people's ego. And as long as this continues, it will always be that some egos are stronger than other egos. So they will be supposedly at the top, which I said is in fact the lowest point. So I'm not referring to what I said before. I'm not against that people still keep in touch with, let's say, Jesus, and Sundays go to the church. But it's far from enough. And it can be even part of a system that perpetuates, this is the word, that prolongs, sustains the system. As long as it has a link to reality, I'm totally in favor of it, but this is also always the crucial point, how real it is. Is it part of the next system or the same system in a new disguise, or is it related to, embedded in reality itself? The whole reality, including spirituality. And the earthly realm. So why do we submit to this pyramid system that has been turned upside down? Why don't we come back to the real pyramid? Which means basically that we are ruled from above and not from down. The highest chakras should rule over the lowest. This is clear. The highest chakra is representing oneness with everything, even as everything. And then you go down, you go to the consciousness level, you go to the level of energy, you go to the heart with a small h, which is not the same as the heart with a big H, as I usually talk about. Anyway, then you go totally down into the lowest chakras. And they should know their place, this lowest chakras, the lowest realms. And this point, it's exactly the other way around. The supposed top of the pyramid, the cabal manages to control people, to enslave them, by exactly triggering the lowest chakras, especially the very lowest, the safety chakra. And people submit to this. So, what a way it is, what a long way to turn the whole thing upside down, that you pay tribute or submit to the highest chakras. Whereas it is obvious that everything is related to one another, to each other. And we're not in our own little fearful world, protecting ourselves against threats from outside. They cannot be controlled. Control only happens here, in this lowest point. Well, it's true. In the higher levels you can still be controlled and manipulated and bribed if you don't have clarity yourself on that level, on these levels. As long as you don't see through the basic patterns of duality going back and forth, then you still can be manipulated there. So on the highest level you still have the level of oneness and duality. That's the last, deepest level of duality you have to see through, and then there's no manipulation at all anymore after that. When oneness and duality has become one, or has been seen to be one, in fact, my whole manifestation here, my coming down to earth in 1999, is an intervention. I am an intervention. I'm the revelation. I'm the intervention. I'm people's relief. I'm the heart of everybody. Because there's no I. The whole life, the I, all the different levels of duality has been seen through here. And as long as it doesn't happen in people, it doesn't happen, as I say, of course, so far, then there's still an I on all the levels of duality, the different spheres of life, different realms, different chakras. There's an I if you don't see through the duality. Don't have clarity in that, if you're not free beyond it. So only the one, the real one, who is beyond all these different levels of I, can say, I'm the heart. There's only the heart. Everything is part of me, of the heart. So in that sense, I cannot say as an I, there will be an intervention of me. It's just the heart seeing here on earth what happens. That makes a difference. And this is also thanks to the few people around me who have delivered the dark content that needed to be seen. Now these last years it goes very quickly for everything that is exposed nowadays. And this process of the heart manifesting itself and its radiance on the earthly level becomes much stronger, faster than before. Although the basics of it, this process has been laid down, has been put into this realm before. And now it spreads. Many people wake up via the pre-work that has been done in a more intimate setting with people around me, around the manifested heart. So the cabal is triggered this big urge in them to hurry up the process. It is even official now. I saw it yesterday I think, in the news. The UN and the WEF, the biggest criminal organization in the world, the biggest, they have come to an agreement that they will hurry up the process of the Great Reset of 2030. And they want to hurry it up to implement it earlier. So I'm not even surprised. You can feel that, as I said, in the ether. They cannot wait anymore. They want it all now, preferably today than tomorrow. And they think this is the time. This is also because something is on their heels, let's say, as we say it in Dutch. Iemand sits op de hielen. Because somewhere, constantly they might be aware of something else that is also happening in this earthly realm. And that does not support their interests. So the whole fight seems to accelerate, worsen coming time. This is not the end yet. It's not for nothing that in many areas of life the crisis starts, has started. And they're all dangerous. People have this battle in themselves. Their manifestation of ego, but also of the heart. I'm surely working on reinforcing the heart in people, creating a pathway by which they can find again the heart and don't feel lost and only a victim to everything that happens to them. Surely this last few years. The pathway which happens by the light going down into the dark, as I sometimes did in the past also. Everybody understood what I was doing. Hey! You don't have to all the time keep this pressure head down. The light goes down. It's not sustainable. You can relax it again. The dark sees its chance again, but you see it goes too far again. And you put it in its place again. It must be seen, felt. Seen, felt. This is so important. I wrote many times about it. Seen and felt. Or even seen, hyphen, felt. Not only seen, also felt. Feel what's going on here on earth. Not only try to see it with the mind. Really try to convince other people that things are not going right. Feel all this in your own system. And thus become a mirror. A living mirror. An alive body. Heartened. The heart has spoken.